for commissioners.
I'd like to call the meeting to order.
They're going to the meeting they gotta go to now.
Maybe. First, we could review the agendas. Anybody got any changes?
You're on camera now, don't forget that.
That didn't last long at the party. We got any changes, additions to the agenda? Would take a look at the October 3rd, September 20th meeting minutes. Has anybody got any changes, additions?
Didn't somebody make a change to something in September? Okay.
The issue Jimmy Tate was talking about with the board having consensus on the ordinance, I changed it to the planning board making consensus on it.
So that's already been fixed.
Yeah.
Okay.
The wrong date for the next meeting.
On these,
Maybe October the 19th, we should say October 18th.
okay.
Other than the one change, anything else? Not. Entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Good.
The minutes.
Good job.
All in favor? Say aye. Opposed? All right, who said it?
Yeah, it works in.
Our liaison had a prior engagement for tonight. Any comments that you'd like to make in regards to him?
The commissioners met in the last meeting and did charge us with the sign orders for the next review. I just wanted to remind us to take our time, just do what we need to do to get it right. They're not in any hurry. But we will be looking at the sign orders as soon as we're done with subdivision. The other thing Jenny wanted me to mention was with Larry's last meeting being tonight, he wanted the board to thank you for everything you've done, Larry. We all appreciate you being here for as long as you have. All of a sudden, you dropped the baby.
Thank God you're really young now, I'm pretty old.
Just kind of puts you up the fashion.
We're gonna have a before and after photo.
Larry, we thank you.
You brought a lot to the table, and I think everyone present and past would agree and say that we appreciate your job. Service to you. Anything else? That's it. Public comment?
Colin, you probably don't want to say nothing.
No, you guys get that.
Before we get into unfinished business, something that I intended to review all along, but I got sidetracked. It's real important we understand what our job is and what we've been tasked to do. And unless the Board of Commissioners have changed this, and I'm not aware of it, I want to read the Macon County Planning Board mission statement. It's an advisory board. The Macon County Commissioners' mission of the Macon County Planning Board shall be to develop and advocate public policy and procedures to preserve the integrity of our mountain heritage, the beauty and tranquility of our community, as well as our natural environment for the benefit of current populations as well as future generations, while sustaining economic vitality and social welfare to our citizens. And I just ask that as we conduct the business of this board, that everyone can keep that in mind and understand that what our job is and what we're put here to do. I think we can be good. With that said, first thing on our agenda for under unfinished business is talking about the compaction of field heights. And I think Matt has some information that he'd like to share with us in regards to that.
I talked to Mark through Hayward County. their slope ordinance was a threshold of 15 feet, where anything in a field slope below 15 feet, they didn't require a compaction engineer 15 feet above. I also made a couple of additional efforts to talk to Mitchell Bishop with DOT. Mitchell, he was in Raleigh and couldn't get all the stuff that I needed. I think he's still got some stuff for me. And then I talked to Ronnie Billbeck, what's his partner name? Dave, something like that. Ronnie's, he's a geologist, and his partner, civil engineer. They were looking at, they recommended 5 feet. But there's no absolute data with fill height as to what would cause it to be unstable. Both Mitchell and Ronnie discussed slopes of banks, benching, you know, how all that, soil type, of course, we all know that. That's what we're at, that's what we're asking for. If you want me to still look for some of that data, I'll be glad, but both, everybody I talked to is not.
Did Hayward County provide you with any idea? I mean, have they had, since they adopted that 15 feet, have they had any problems?
Talking to Mark doesn't actually regulate their orders, he applied it. But I talked to their accounting engineer about it before, and I've not heard anything about that.
Do they require compaction for, if it's over 15 feet, what's the percent of compaction?
I think it's either 92 or 95. But what I did talking with Ronnie today, he mentioned maybe leaving that language out, saying that if it's over a fill height, let it go to the engineers, and let the engineer decide. State DOT 95.
Something that you may be interested in here, Jackson County, 14.3, all fields should be stabilized in conformance with generally accepted engineering standards, including a compacted density of at least 95%. Vegetation which has been covered cleared shall be removed from the site and shall not be covered by or embedded in fill material. Planning director may require certification of compaction by a qualified professional and, if necessary, determine compliance with this section. That's just gives you an idea of what our neighbors are putting in regards to that.
They didn't use any height?
The one reference that they have under 14.2 cut and fill is they reference 1.1 and field slopes shall not be steeper than 1/2 1. Artificial slopes exceeding 35 feet in height shall be benched at 35 foot ago. And that's reading out of the Jackson County Mountain Hillside Development Ordinance, which is adopted. It's on the draft. Not to muddy the water, but just.
So both of the what you just read and then the information that Matt had from Haywood County, they came out of their slope ordinances?
That's
Is
the
that right?
hillside development one.
This is out there.
Also development, okay, the other one was out of the slope ordinance. Right.
Different night, but.
That's where it's done at the bench.
You know, not, that's what we want to do, but that's just what our neighbors are doing.
Right.
And
Well,
I didn't know what they had in their subdivision ordinance.
is Jackson County not in the process of trying to rewrite that thing, don't they realize it's way too strenuous? And they're trying to redo it.
I think that we've been to Haywood, I've been to Balkan, been to Ashland City, I've been to Jackson County meetings. And I think that, just a general statement would be that all those boards are similar to ours. They have a very diverse group of people who have the best interest of the respective counties in mind. And I think, depending on which county we talk about, they're either reviewing or in process of reviewing. Right now, Jackson County is working on the review of that hillside development. And they are also in the final stages in the development of we're calling it a water recharge standard, which basically has to do with going to push a house side out and then how much water is going to run off of it. And it's not just a house side, it's all the way through commercial. So they're going to, that's at the public hearing stage, and then after that, the next thing they will task with is this mountain hillside development.
I talked to Marty Jones, who's running for commissioner, and he said that he thinks that it's all going to be good. Of course, he's assuming he's going to get elected. That's a big assumption.
In talking to the current board members, which they had two that had resigned, and there was two that were not there, and I was there, so it wasn't really a full board, but I don't think that was what they had in mind.
Well, a lot depends on what happens in November. But they've had all kinds of trouble with that task force. There's one overwhelmed, the whole mountain. I mean, I'm not saying, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think the Jackson County ones are very good to try to modify.
And that's up to the board whether or not they want to use it. I'm just, just telling you what is there, and what's been adopted, what's in place, and what's in use.
I'm concerned about all of this is how much more it's going to make a road cost. Cost a lot of money to build a road. And we need some development being done. There's not much going on. I hate to make any more strenuous than we have to. I don't want any bad road. It's just how to get something that's livable and still wind up with a good product. It's not easy to do. I realize when you start writing an ordinance, it's not easy to do.
And the construction standards that that this board approved some time back, it said that the compaction would be verified at the discretion of the administrator, is the language we approved in that. And so I'm assuming that meant that if the administrator thought there was a problem, you could ask for engineering, for an engineer to verify it. Is that how you would interpret that?
That's basically what this Jackson. It's very, not exactly, it's similar. I think it's the same thing.
Does that leave you, if it were to say that the compaction would be verified at the direction of the administrator, is that an awkward position for the administrator?
How's he going to test it? Since it's required to be tested.
Well, are we not being redundant even having this conversation? I mean, the construction standards, which are in the commissioner's hands, the conversation's kind of already taken place, hasn't it? The fill height requirement, compaction requirements?
If we know where we use those,
Well, one thing we could do would be to say that we would recommend the inclusion of the submitted construction standards in the subdivision ordinance as well as the sedimentation and erosion control ordinance pending approval by the commission.
put the whole construction standard in the, what's.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying the commissioners already have those recommendations from this board. It seems to me it should be up to the commissioners what they do with those recommendations.
And it is, and they will,
So I'm just asking, why are we continuing the conversation?
because we're not continuing the conversation. What we're doing is addressing the issues with the subdivision ordinance. What she was making the recommendation was that the same language that we've already agreed on might be included in this. So, you know, what the commissioners do or don't do with that is irrelevant to this. But I think what Susan's saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is it would make sense for, if we're gonna have the same type of language in both, that they would both be the same instead
Yeah.
of one saying one thing and one saying another.
I mean, I don't think it would
Well,
be.
do they
if-
need to be about that?
If we agree with the compaction standards, which we have submitted to the commission, then it would make sense to me to just, like Carl said, to use the same language, the same provisions, so that we don't end up submitting two things that aren't the same.
Or, as Matt was saying, another option would be to pull those into this ordinance and not have two things.
Yeah, I think the idea was always that this compaction standards would be, I mean, the construction standards would be inserted into the appropriate ordinance. Yeah.
So what are the construction standards read now?
Would people like me to read these, or could we quickly get copies, or who doesn't have a copy? I can read to you. Number one, the area to be excavated or upon which fill is to be placed shall be stripped and grubbed, and all organic material shall be removed from that area. Two,
That's all in the road.
for cut slopes between 8 feet and 30 feet in vertical height, the maximum allowable slope is 1 vertical to 1.5 horizontal. For fill slopes between 5 feet and 30 feet their vertical height, the maximum allowable slope is 1 vertical to 2 horizontal. 4, the land disturbing activity shall not contain any graded or structurally stabilized slope in excess of 30 feet vertical height in cut areas and 30 feet in vertical height in fill areas. 5, structural material must be placed in widths not greater than 8 inches in thickness and compacted to a minimum of 92% standard proctor density. The compaction will be verified at the discretion of the administrator. Number 6, a minimum 10-foot wide bench shall be constructed into the natural slope at the toe of the fill. 1 additional 5-foot wide bench shall be cut into the natural slope for every 10 feet increase in vertical height. Number 7, these general requirements may be modified by a design professional in the related field, provided acceptable technical justification is submitted to the administrator. Anybody would like to see those?
But if you do that, if you put that in there, you're automatically requiring them to have everything engineered, because it says everything's got to be to 92% compaction. So, I mean,
It said the compaction will be verified at the discretion of the administrator, but you're saying they don't have any way to know they're doing 92% proctor if they don't have an engineer?
yeah, I mean, until you bring in an engineer, right? So so for,
It appears from the time these were approved to where we are now, the point shifted.
Proctor and compaction, and leave it up to the design professional. I mean, that way it is next on the chopping block.
well, I thought we were going to come up with a number of anything above a certain fill was where we were going to start getting compaction tests, and only on those areas. That's what we talked about last
Fill
meeting.
material, you know, of a depth of such and such.
So,
See, all this was done before you came here. This is already sitting in their table.
No, I understand that, but I mean, that's why I'm saying I don't think we need to put that in this. A, if it's already done, but B, I don't agree with that on all the subdivisions.
But 2/3 of that's already in the soil and sedimentation ordinance.
I think we need to go back to square one, you know, if that's where the board had.
Well, the last time we talked about this, we were talking about having the engineer, if it went over a certain threshold, and you just came back with a number of 15, and you said 35 feet, right, in the Jackson County ordinance.
I have it 15 and 5.
But didn't you just say 35 feet?
No, 30's in this one.
But I thought you said that
That
out
was
of Jackson.
vertical, for cut slopes.
This is just talking about benching. It's good, it says every 35 feet you gotta have a bench of equal width.
Which is nothing, you're gonna do that anyway.
It's not about fill and stuff.
It doesn't even tell you about the bench. Why, it says 35 feet instead of bench.
When you go someplace at least 12 feet wide.
I bet it's gonna be closer to this than this.
No, you ain't gonna get it that narrow.
You can shovel.
Have you talked to anybody that had any concerns about using the cut height as a threshold? I mean, is there any pitfall?
Mitchell, this is local, but dear attention. He said, if he was to go out and he would only consider the slope, type of soil, stuff like that. I said, would you consider that? He said, no, but I understand why y'all are searching for a height to say this is where we need to start from fast and
The top soil is a whole lot more important than the height and field.
And the slope.
It's good red clay soil.
Would it help to have a couple of these old boys that have been in these hills for so long, putting in roads to come in and tell us their experience?
They'll take, leave it up to them.
They've been doing this for a living.
So that sounds good to me.
You know, I know, but at least it gives us some real-life experience of what these boys have experienced. And, you know, I tend to agree that not every mountainside is the same as far as the kind of dirt you're dealing with, the kind of rock. And everything's gonna change, and we're trying to put a number, a magic number on it. I'd like to get a real-life experience.
Would I qualify with that?
Well, I know
I
one.
don't think,
What what do you think? What's your question? I think if you don't do it right, it's gonna fall off of that mountain. It's pretty that simple. And I don't care how high you feel, I can take you and show you 5-foot fields or something. If you don't start out right, it's gonna follow you to the top. And there's so many, if you don't establish some kind of standard, you'll never get them to do that. Because there'll be the spills and fields that we've had here already.
Can you do a standard that matches all the requirements, all the actual fields?
Well, I personally, just to cover my butt, I get design professionals.
But you're doing a commercial,
No, I've done,
you're doing houses.
yeah, I've done house places too. I still get that compaction test and a bench, and I take a lot of photographs.
I remember when we were working on this, we talked about there being ways of checking compaction, you know, like with just, that were real simple methods that weren't requiring
Well, you can
engineering.
do probe rods.
Probes and things like that.
Well, I still like the idea of putting it over on design professionals. That way, you know, you're not,
But it costs the man building the road a lot.
what does it cost? It's cheaper to build it right the first time, isn't it?
Well, sure, I agree, but you don't have to have that all the time, and it's when we're going to require it.
Well, what's the percentage of the cost of the project as far as design? Depends on how small the
The
project.
end
I've seen
cost-
engineers run things out the roof.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, and once you get it engineered, and that's what it said, then, you know, you're kind of stuck.
Well, Mark, what would be your opinion of what's a fill depth that in your mind would be reasonable to start checking?
I don't think depth actually has a whole lot to do with it. Soil more than anything.
Well, I think it goes back even deeper in soil. It's how you start that field.
Well, that's
Get stripping
Now,
your stuff up
the
there.
bench and
Bench
fixing the
and
bottom of
ribs.
the field, and soil field, right, is very important. That, if you don't do that.
It don't matter what you got on top of it, it ain't gonna stay there.
So have you got some kind of guideline that we could put in here?
Well,
Or how to get reasonable compaction?
it's difficult. I've thought a lot about it. I don't know that, I have the answer of where the cutoff ought to be or what you ought to require on it. Because every road you build is going to be a little different. It's going to be, it's going to a whole lot depend on the soil and the place you're working. And you know that.
I agree with that. That's the reason you need to have some kind of guidelines, because it's not. this
Well,
is-
guidelines, yeah, I can understand that, but guidelines turn into be laws most of the time.
But the thing is, if we all know that there are roads, that the roads need to be built a certain way, and we want to see them built that way, then there has to be some trigger point or some height or something that says, at this point, you have to check your compaction or show your compaction or, verify your compaction.
Well, it sounds like that it's probably an impossible equation, but it needs to include, from what I'm hearing, it needs to include cut, and it needs to include type of soil.
Yeah, and it's gonna be hard to come up with, but in the whole thing, you need to think about it, what we do right here. If Macon County needs some building and some stuff going on, and if you make it cost so much, that the end product can't be sold on today's market, then then nobody's gonna be doing it.
But we probably got a 5 to 6 year inventory sitting here now.
Well, I know that.
Lord, today's market, I don't know what you could.
You
You
can't build it.
Unless you got some cheap labor to get the roads in. Peggy, what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
Well, I discussed this with my husband, who's built many miles of roads in Macon County without even washing out. And he said, number one, the type of soil is what you had to have. Said number two, they used to build the roads and they run the dozer over it and they compact them down. And he said the first shovel full of dirt you put, you compacted it in. And he said every one of them had to be done. So the difference with today's roads causing them to erode was they're not using the dozers anymore, they're using those backhoes and dipping it out. And he said every dipper full would have to be compacted in order for it to hold. And I asked him the footage and he said, you'd have to start at the ground up. And
But I mean,
What do you think?
Every time we start talking about roads, I start thinking about the soil and sedimentation ordinance. I think all road standards ought to be in the soil and sedimentation ordinance. We don't really need them in here. That's what I always think, because soil and sedimentation is the place to take care of that, not here. That's the way I've always thought about it.
how many contractors out there actually pushing roads in those sort of types? Satellite from red clay to, they don't.
There's a lot of people don't, that's true.
I wouldn't know it myself.
And sometimes that's a big problem, because you don't have anywhere to get the good soil. You go trying to haul it out, bring in good soil, that's hard to do. And there's some that's soil, it's just hard to come back.
Well, Cowie Mountain's got a high content of graphite in it.
If it is, that old stuff's got that old slick. You can't.
You go up Old Cold Sage and you've got mica.
Yeah.
Chris,
That
what's the
stuff,
answer?
You cannot, have that stuff.
You can, I mean, I would actually get something, but you have to get that moisture right.
Yeah. It's squeezed right out from under.
No, you've got, I mean, it's a peak on the graph, you've got to get it.
Yeah.
It's easy that you can, it makes it affordable to have an engineer on site. Whereas if you got these smaller projects where you're putting in 30 feet of road, I mean, bringing Chris out, test every 30 feet or every 10 feet, just, drive the car. There's gotta be some answer, I just don't know what it is.
Well, that's your discretion.
What's your thought?
Me? I can barely hear, so. I think we have to write it to leave it in Matt's hands, and we can't put a number on it, height, fill, because everyone's different, and if you put that in there that you do have to get an engineer, well, okay, now we got to get an engineer on everything, and then the project, all of a sudden we still got to get an engineer, and you still got to test it, and I mean, I could go out there and build the road, on a simple one, and, so I don't know that you can just do it across the board.
So you're maybe thinking something like, it's gotta meet, it can't have stumps and trash in it, it's gotta have 95% compaction, and at his discretion, could require design professional.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden you get a bunch of switchbacks or, steep areas or whatever, but I mean, just to say everything needs one.
In my mind, I believe if I was going out there to see how a road was being built, and you go out there and they've got a field in there that's 30 feet high, and you drive across it, it's soft and spongy, and you
If
put
you
the
walk off the
road
side,
out there, and you can run it down 3 feet with no problem. Then you need to say, well, look, your field's not good, you need to have this thing fixed, and we need the compaction fixed. And if practically that could work, That's the best solution.
Well, are you, I guess, let's back up here a minute. So you're gonna start a little thing here, you're gonna have it designed, I mean, you're gonna have to apply for a permit, so you're gonna have plans to know that you've got a 25-foot field or a 5-foot field.
Not
You
unless
just
the
don't
topo
jump-
survey is required up front, I don't think that's a requirement.
I know, but I mean, how do you know
It comes on the erosion.
they've got a great plan that's got cut and fill? Well, see,
Not all of them, most problems solve it.
exactly, that's what I was gonna say, unless you problem design, it's all in front.
Well, I mean, what,
And I think it ought to state that at any time, if the project got started and he didn't think it needed an engineer, and all of a sudden Matt's out there visiting and says, you know, this ain't quite what I thought it was gonna be, he can require it at that point.
I mean, that's, what, I think what you're saying is basically what this thing from Jackson County sees, theoretically.
Read it again.
All fields should be stabilized in conformance with generally accepted engineering standards, including compaction density of at least 95%. Vegetation shall be cut or cleared, vegetation which has been cut or cleared shall be removed from site, shall not be covered up by or embedded in fill materials. Planning director may require certification of compaction by a qualified professional if necessary to determine compliance with this section.
Yeah, if you got somebody doing the work, and, you know, I think Matt does a great job. But now, Matt may not be here forever, and you're gonna get the wrong person out there, and you've got a real problem. That's my only drawback.
That's the part I would be worried about.
But we can look at this again in 2 years. I'll stay 2 more years. I promise.
We got that, we got that in writing?
What'd you say?
That's true.
We can review that every 2 years. I'll stay 2 more years.
I agree with what Lamar's saying, but along with that, there's a lot of references to that, and everything we've done. I think we may unduly put more pressure on the administrators than what we should.
Well, it is almost impossible to write an ordinance that will cover everything and be fair about the whole thing. You just can't do it. And some good common sense has got to get in there somewhere.
But
In Washington, they put about 500 things in one to get all those BS ones passed.
But Lamar, don't you think that lane was there is a lot better than what's in there now?
Yeah, I agree.
What
do we need
about now,
anything about cut slopes or fill slopes, about the maximum allowance?
That's in there, too.
Right, and it's in, so a lot of that's already covered.
It doesn't matter how much it is or
If it's too
isn't,
steep or not?
if it's not done correctly, it's not stable, then
We don't.
But it's not helpful to you, Matt, to have something specified, like
Well,
maximum slope.
where it says generally accepted engineering standards,
Mhm.
that covers it all.
Yeah, that's a good phrase. I mean, you know.
And that's,
And that's really the most practical way to handle it.
Jimmy, you live with that?
Yeah.
If someone wanted to hire an engineer, he done what they
Be done.
No, that's what I'm-
What's
And there
in
probably
there?
will be a lot of projects that have a budget that can do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, how big of a problem is it really in the county? Just forgive my ignorance.
I
There are
haven't
roads
seen-
all over the county falling off the side of the mountains.
I haven't seen that many problems.
I don't know where it is, but I can tell you where the problem is. Because it's mentioned in every meeting, wildflower or whatever. That place be damned in everything.
If you go burn right around on them roads, it won't look near as bad as you think it would.
I go by Berry Cove Estates, so that's one I'm very familiar with, and I see them coming off the side of the hill, but I haven't been out.
There are some roads.
Where's that one
They
at,
fix
Carl?
106, it's like get.
Where's Bear Cove
They
Estate?
go up Onion Mountain Road and turn on Berry Cove Road. and we'll
Go with that.
Yeah, that development on property that they've got one at the back end, just leave it. And he sold the lot on the other side of the line. What was that guy right there? on
Good luck to the buyer.
To the left. Oh, it's, we buy it.
There.
I think the majority of the road studies, they do the stormwater runoff.
It's, no, it's for construction things. I guarantee it. Stormwater could do it, but the majority of the papers I see never were started right. They were never compacted.
So you need to be a certified road construction contractor that's built a road and things?
If it's over $30,000.
Yeah, but they have to have a license and
Okay.
the grading.
So
So a major subdivision.
Yeah, so a small subdivision, I mean, they can rent a bulldozer and do whatever they want. So there you have no standards, so now
Well,
you need
But
to,
how many of these situations are you gonna get into on a small subdivision?
I don't know. I'm
Not, not
Now,
that
you
many.
see, do you see
$30,000
roads that
ain't
would be
good for it.
approved by the
$30,000 ain't good for it.
town
I don't
Ain't much of a road.
Well,
If you only cut me
That's, to me, that's
7 lots, I mean, your road.
Well, I'm assuming, we're not gonna apply these to, minor subdivisions.
Wow.
Well, still on roads, it's just short road, that.
If the short road has no problems, it's not gonna matter.
Really,
I mean, again, you're letting the administrator see if there's a problem, so why not let him see if there's a problem?
we talked about that last week, or last month, in October meeting.
I remember talking about it, I didn't remember.
And Chris stated that any fill slopes over the required fill height should be compacted and tested, not, the section not meeting the requirements for ordinance. Both major and minor subdivisions should be included, and John was mentioning something about how we sort of take ourselves out of the equation by having common sense roads more easy to. I think most of your minor stuff would probably eliminate itself from this. But if you just got into a bad situation somewhere, you can still lean on it a little bit to me.
So by default, most of them will eliminate themselves, but there's really no downside of including small subdivisions because they're gonna
Now,
fly under.
we're not applying this to driveways or anything like that, that's,
That's why it's in the subdivision order.
I'd be okay with leaving it to the discretion of the administrator if there was a board that you could go to for an appeal.
yeah.
Then I'm fine with it that way. But I think a man deserves to have some sort of appeal process. Agreed. Besides down there on Main Street.
Don't we have a board of adjustments for that?
Board of Adjustments will
You
include
forget that,
subdivision.
you'll never get nothing
I
like that.
think that the county attorney, I don't remember exactly what he said, but I don't think we can do that. I don't think.
No,
that-
because that, well, the board.
No, that's what it
is,
said.
Is a different,
Could you not always
It's a
just go
state
jack
regulatory-
your report?
yeah, there's not much you
A
can
local
do there.
board of adjustment, I was on it, and we had that problem. You can't.
Yeah, even if you wanted to do something, you could.
Chris, I don't think that we have the leeway to do that.
Seriously.
And given he's the county attorney, we don't. Put it in there, and then he stands in front of the county commissioner and says that's not right, and I'll just go up to the judge.
Have we exhausted all avenues of information? I mean, there must be literally thousands of roads broken and left and not needed. This stuff shouldn't be a problem for today. It should have been something that was discovered a long time ago, and some sort of standards should be out there.
But there are standards out there, and they, from my research and then going to the meetings I've been to and reading the ordinances that are from western part of the state, they all are very similar in language to the map, if you agree or not.
Yeah, because every site's different. I think you do what you need to do.
But when I mentioned cut and fill slopes, whether they needed to be maximum allowable slope, you said that those are sort of, those standards are kind of.
Industry standards.
Those are industry standards, so those standards do exist, like we had in the construction standards.
Once, even the erosion control was two
What do you think? That's the stuff from
What,
the county.
Matt?
Yeah.
That we're trying to put into the subdivision.
What's the purpose of the erosion control ordinance?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like we should be referring.
What's the soil erosion applies, would apply to a driveway and a lot.
as far as any land disturbance.
So roads.
But we wouldn't want it to apply, we don't want
But you
this
don't
to-
want compaction standards to apply to driveway.
We don't want this to apply to a driveway.
No, we don't.
So that's why it needs to be in here, not in soil.
I think eventually what you'll see, Jimmy, is all these land use ordinances will eventually come together and be a unified ordinance. And if we go through the erosion control orders, we put language in there that reflects everything sort of meshes together. If that's.
Well, it certainly should agree, huh?
That's right. They shouldn't come to
Yeah,
contradict each other.
there shouldn't be no difference.
But that's not what we're passing.
We might wind up with a UDO.
This is the email from Mr. Jones.
Okay.
This answer to our questions. You mind if I read a section out of this? However, if there's a feeling that the final decision should not rest with the subdivision administrator, then the North Carolina statutory framework certainly would allow amending the subdivision ordinance to take the authority away from the administrator and put it with A, the Board of Commissioners, B, the Board of Commissioners on recommendation of the designated body, or C, a designated planning board, technical review committee, or other designated body or staff person. Sounds to me like it is okay to have a rigorous process.
Where you at?
The bottom of page 2 and on to page 3.
Well, we did have.
Used to be us, and that right there wasn't good.
But the paragraph above that says, I find nothing in subdivision regulation statutes containing Article 18, Chapter 163, which authorizes a different appellate process. There's nothing that specifically provides a matter to be appealed to a quasi-judicial board such as Board of Adjustment. That being the case, I would not recommend venturing into an area where there's not specific authority given by the subdivision regulations.
But if you continue reading,
However,
Well, but now you
if
see-
there's a feeling that the final decision should not rest with the administrator, then the North Carolina statutory framework certainly will allow the amending of the ordinance to take that authority away from the administrator and put it with.
Typical legal.
You can't, but you can.
But you can't.
I suggest you not.
What if you did?
Yeah, the county would have to
Well,
create.
if we do that, though, it's gonna take all the authority away from Matt, and everything comes up, we have to come to that review.
Yeah, it's saying.
Not unless there was a serious grievance.
Right.
it says or other designated body or staff person.
But it says something about taking it away from the administrator.
That's the,
Yeah, but you're not taking it away from the
you're not really
administrator.
taking it away, you're just giving them
An avenue.
another avenue. that-
Then go above
It
your
says the
head.
final decision.
Well, they always hire.
Not really. It's just if,
It actually
You
belongs
sign off, the engineer sign off on it, you'd be good with it.
as long as Matt is the administrator, we wouldn't have any problem. But if we had some guy that was just a little bit more gung-ho, we might have problems.
It just turns down everything.
Yeah.
You got to have, or, I mean, that's better than everybody gets hiring an attorney to sue the county.
Well, we had one for,
review it
the
every
review
2
process
years.
of the plats and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But I don't think we ever had one.
It's been, this thing's already been on the books for 4 years. and this
But they
is the first
certainly
one
would
we've
have
had.
this time. They wouldn't necessarily have.
Told us we was gonna review it 2 years ago. But it's been 4 years.
It may take us 2 years to review it this time.
Good.
Somebody else is putting the question in for about 3. It's hard to get 5 people together.
So, I think the consensus is this language is okay with everybody. If we could add in that we would have some sort of appellate process. Yeah. Which would consist of a quasi-board appointed by the county commissioners.
Actually, what he said was it could be the county commission.
By law, it
Or it
can
could be
be.
this board.
It can be the planning board,
Yeah, but
technical review committee, but the county commissioner can make that decision.
But the decision, when you make those kinds of decisions, you are personally, not grouply, personally liable for your decision. And people can sue you personally.
Are you sure about that?
I'm absolutely positive.
The county insurance covers you on this board.
Back when people were threatening to sue me and Al Slagle, we met with the county attorney, the county manager, Derek, and they were told no, that you will not be personally liable, that the county would be liable.
But that's because they're I think you are probably personally liable, but their insurance policy is
Yeah.
covering you.
So, I mean, there wouldn't be a danger if this planning board was the appeal board or whatever, we wouldn't then be compromised.
I don't think this planning board can make that determination. I think if we want to put this language in our, whatever ordinance we're working on, and also add to that we want a review board, quasi-review board, then it would be up to the county commissioners.
Yeah.
We can't go any further than that. It's up to the county commissioners to decide if they want it to be them, some of us.
But we can make recommendations to them of what we thought it could be.
Yeah, well, why?
What's the purpose of that?
I think if we recommend to them a appellate process, and it means that much this board, they're going to do something. Or if they're successful, we can say we can't do something. But we've done all we can do at that point.
Well, I can give you the fire code as an example.
I know for me, I'm more flexible with this code if we have some sort of appeals process.
So am I.
If there's not an appeals process, then there's a lot of stuff's gonna have to change before I recommend sending this to you.
I mean, is it the consensus of this group that what I've read twice, read again, adding the language about a review board, is that acceptable?
Makes more sense.
But you're saying you'd like there to be the review board for the entire ordinance, right? That there would be, at the end of the ordinance, something about a review.
I think, yes, everything in this ordinance you should be able to appeal anything in this ordinance.
And that's what I was going to say. We get this language in compaction standard goes in, let's put this somewhere else. But if they're going to review one decision line, they might as well be able to review them.
Yeah.
Right.
Or go hire an engineer, whatever they want to do.
Well, yeah, you give you some choices.
I think we.
So would we be
So
saying
you're
in
saying-
each case that either it would be at the discretion of the administrator, have engineering certification, or the closet?
But at least if Matt goes out there and he makes a decision that people just can't live with, for whatever the reason, there's somewhere to turn, it's not the end of the trail.
So they could either go get an engineer at that point, or they could go to this quasi.
And it's actually good for him or whoever.
That language may be voted on.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're saying we want to do is we want to look at, so maybe
Matt?
vote on this, and then the next thing we vote on, put this language in for the compaction, and then
Where are we?
add language to the subdivision ordinance allowing this review process. Not for this, but for the entire ordinance.
What are we replacing in this ordinance? Where's it at in this ordinance that we're replacing? Are we adding to?
What are we deleting?
Yeah, what are we deleting in here?
DOT standards, action.
Where is it at? Do you know?
Because we did 6 last year.
159.64.
$159.64. What talks about road standards, action field. Compaction of field, 159.64, second paragraph.
Page 20.
Or 19, depending on which copy you have.
Yeah, I'm on page 20.
Currently reads, the way the ordinance is written right now, it talks about backfill and fill materials shall receive equal or higher degree of compaction and undisturbed materials adjacent to disturbed land. Backfill materials shall conform to current NCDOT specs. Compaction shall be accomplished by mechanical materials, current NCDOT specs, and then it talks about geotextile fabric. The reason we was thinking about Jimmy getting away from DOT specs is because nobody's taking, DOT's not taking over the road anymore.
But now you emailed me a different one.
I emailed you, and that's,
Is that the one you're reading out of?
no, I'm reading the current one.
Okay.
The one I read was what I tried to make a couple weeks ago. Make a stab at it. To be honest with
So we need to take those 2 paragraphs out.
you, and replace it with
What we're talking about.
What we're talking about. With this one right here. Does anybody want to do this again?
Read it one more time, go right back here.
Chris?
I'm listening.
All fields should be stabilized in conformance with generally accepted engineering standards, including compaction density of at least 95%. Vegetation which has been cut or cleared shall be removed from the site and shall not be covered by or embedded in fill material. The planning director may require certification of compliance by a qualified professional, if necessary, to determine compliance with this section. Yes, sir.
My only question would be the 95%. Because you read something earlier that only, I think you read 92. So
I think,
what should that?
well, I think it should just come out and it should be at the discretion of the engineering practices.
If you've got an engineer.
Well, he's going to require it.
Yeah.
He's not gonna know if it's 90, 95, 93
You won't know
without an engineer anyway.
You walk out there and you see something, you go,
Well,
I don't like that, do something about it.
Depends
You
if
don't
it's
care about it.
modified.
you. You're saying take out including a compaction density of 95%, and just leave it as generally accepted engineering practice.
That first sentence would say, all fields should be stabilized in conformance with generally accepted engineering standards, period.
It's usually 92 to 95%.
Yeah.
We did
I
have a
like how
sentence
that-
in there saying shall
But
achieve an
that's
equal or
general.
higher degree of
That's
compaction than
standard.
undisturbed materials adjacent to disturbed land, and get rid of that.
Yeah, because that would be a T where it's got to at least be as compacted to the same standard of existing virgin soil. You want that?
Well, virgin soil is 100%, so.
Would we be keeping
Duh.
paragraph
Yeah.
1?
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were saying.
Was it wrong?
Virgin soil, 100%.
I was wondering who's going to say that.
Keep out this paragraph.
And then also it says something about vegetative cover. All that's in erosion control already, right?
No, existing vegetative,
Vegetation.
existing. You don't fill over.
Yeah, but we're talking about
We've got to allow that.
all of it.
Vegetation which has been cut or cleared shall be removed from the site and shall not be covered up by or embedded in fill material.
And that's in erosion control, is it not?
It's in there.
It could be, but erosion control, this is not covering what erosion control, this is covering what erosion control is not.
How's that?
I don't see any problem with repeating something that would be beneficial, that, that applies. If it's the same, if it's an erosion control, why not repeat it?
Well, that's not emerging from anybody wants to build a road right when they do that.
Take that.
That's not something problem.
Better, you should.
Are you confused yet?
Paragraph 1.
No.
And
I am.
replace paragraph 2.
Are you, I'm assuming that we're going to take out any references in this ordinance to the DOT standards, right? All of it.
So that means that whole paragraph of 159.64 is gone, right?
Both of them, the first two.
Yes.
First two.
The first two are coming out, we're replacing it with one, well, I'm assuming that's one paragraph.
Well,
Well,
minus
the-
the 95% compaction.
Yeah.
But you're taking out the 95% compaction and saying general practices.
Right.
See, we are keeping up.
But there, when it also says, are the minimum construction requirements for private roads as established by this chapter? And that's not just compaction. That's width of roads, stone paved area, shoulders area.
Right, what it's saying is you've got to meet
Yeah, that's just talking about
DOT
crushing and gravel.
or the minimum of
Or
this
DOT.
requirement.
Yeah.
ABC.
Well, since we're not meeting any DOT standard anymore,
Then you
you've got
just-
to meet the requirement of the chapter.
Right. So instead of this saying,
It won't be the same as one.
there won't be a general paragraph leading into road standards. There would just be, like where we have width of road, stone or paved area, shoulder area, ditches, there would be also a number that was compaction, which would be what Carl's saying.
Right, we would make them one, two, and it would be its own.
Right, that would be, so there would, those general paragraphs would be deleted, and compaction would just be a number like these others. Okay.
Yeah.
And that,
Done.
Make it so.
Let's make a motion.
Well, let's read it one more time. I'm back at that.
I just said you have to read it.
I want to make sure that we're all okay on this. All fields should be stabilized in conformance with generally accepted engineering standards, period. Vegetation which has been cut or cleared shall be removed from the site and shall not be covered by or embedded in fill material, period. Planning director may require certification of compaction by a qualified professional, if necessary, to determine compliance with this section, period.
Why would we, not to throw a wrench, but why do we care if the material's been, as long as it's not underneath the road, why do we care whether the material's left on site or whether it's not left on site or they
I
burn
think
it?
they're saying removed from the road.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but it's not what it says.
Is that saying?
Well,
That's what it's implying, but that's not what it says.
you take site being as completely
I'm
out
just
of the
saying-
box.
You're saying parcel is the site.
Site, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can change that word a little bit.
Say on the roadside.
Disturbed area.
Yeah,
From
I
the-
know what they're saying, but it's just,
Yeah, yeah.
you have somebody that
From
wasn't
the
that,
road
show
bed.
us, say, all this stuff gone.
Put it on your.
Yeah.
What if we-
You gotta think like amateur hours.
Okay, we're gonna say remove from disturbed area. Okay, and we're also gonna change under the, instead of planning director, it will be
Subdivision administrator.
You can't just say that. If
No, Mark
that
got me,
leaves,
man.
then we have to start over again.
Now-
Are we, is everybody in agreement?
We'll
that
keep
that's what
him on
we're
the
gonna
job
say?
forever.
And we're gonna add at the whole end of the subdivision ordinance that anything can be reviewed to the,
Yeah, we're gonna
Board.
work that. We're
Huh?
gonna work on that. That's-
okay,
that's-
yeah.
I make a motion that we accept that as
Second,
second.
any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Let the record show. Now, do we want to go ahead and talk about the review process like while we're... So how, what language would be a starting point for that?
You're talking about any decision that's made on this ordinance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do we have some other ordinance that's got that language that you could?
Well,
The
is-
sign
isn't it- or can you just make a recommendation and Chester figure out the language?
I think that's probably the best idea.
That's, I mean, Jimmy
I'll
reiterated last time we were here, using if you need. I mean, it's like,
I thought we were supposed to just be kind of highlighting stuff and then let.
So is it consensus of the board? Well, we'll need to vote on it. I'd entertain a motion that we were going to put a review process in the subdivision ordinance that would be developed by the county attorney and then approved by this board prior to insertion into the subdivision ordinance. We would just need a consensus for that.
But we need to say that,
For
we're
what?
going to say any decision that's made by the subdivision administrator. can
what
be
I'll do is
reviewed.
write something out. If we can get a consensus to the top of Chester about it, he can be figuring it out, and I'll write something proposed back to you next time.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea.
That's straight, so that's consensus.
Of course, my board, just, I don't know where he's got it, fight or on the internet.
Yeah, I'll just put a to-do.
By the way, while you're reading this,
Get started.
That's all of the.
You can't tell us from reading the paper though, Kim.
One of the things that we touched on last time that I think we had some concerns about was what should be shown on the final plat. I think the preliminary, was there any concern about the preliminary? I know there was the
Yes, it's final plat and as-built plat. I think the more
You know, the as-built plat and the final plat should never be,
the same.
they should, and it shouldn't be used in the same term because they're two different things.
Derek actually brought that up. With Derek being in Raleigh this week, there's probably 6 or 8, maybe 10 things on this list that should not be on final plats, that should be on as-built plats.
Right.
I do not mind breaking them down, or if y'all want to go through them and say what they need to be, I can bring you something back with them broken down of what's final plat.
The final plat should not show anything except what's pertinent to make the deed to that lot.
To convey the deed.
Right. And it needs to be certified that it has met, has been looked at by the county. That's by law. The county has to sign off on it, that it meets the ordinances.
That's your
Before it
47,000.
goes, yeah, before it goes up to be recorded.
So is it consensus that we want him to come up, develop that list and bring it back to us, and then we should call it?
I'll just use what we've got.
What we need to do is decide what we want on the as-built plat. Because the GS 4730 pretty well says what's on the final plat.
Right.
As well as the county's already got that, where you have to sign off on it, there's a subdivision, that it meets the county's requirements. So once that's done, that's all that needs to be on the final plat.
Once you read this, what's on the as-built?
Well, it's not, it just says final and as-built. So what it's
Is that
saying is all,
detailed?
and that's what I want to do, is sort of look at it.
We really work to just say what's going to be on the as-built. Just say the final plat has to meet GS 4730.
Sounds like a winner.
We can,
That says it all right there.
and then we can just go through and pop here what we want to add built to be done.
Yeah, that's really what we need to be talking about.
Because of the more preliminary plat, 9 times out of 10 for surveyors involved, basically the preliminary, it's the final, it's one step closer to the final. It's just stamped preliminary, right?
Yeah, generally, you stamp it preliminary so that when you make changes, you're not having to put
You're not
revisions
bound.
on.
And you might send me some of the email at preliminary that won't have everything on GS 4730,
Right.
but it will before it's recorded.
Right, that's why you mark it with right.
So we won't go through the,
That's fine, huh?
That's what we're saying. This
Oh.
one here don't need to be on the final plat, but they do
I
want
hate
to
that.
as-built.
I've shown up late and leave early, but I have another engagement last
well,
10.
you implying you want us to start later and quit earlier? or-
Exactly.
Give me, I need another game.
I think he must be eating dinner with Alan Mark or something.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a big thing to fill there.
He's got to be, he's got to be home.
But y'all continue on.
So is that a motion to adjourn?
With your
No,
permission.
that's not a motion to adjourn. Just a
Well,
motion to be
maybe,
excused.
I mean, maybe we can move through this preliminary, what needs to go on this as-built. And then call it even.
Okay.
That's okay.
No, that's good.
Okay.
That's good. That claim company thing.
Page 18 of the last document that Matt sent out, for the last reading, so we agree.
The more the way I'm looking at it from your point of view, 15956, if we change that to say information to be depicted on, just scratch everything up to as-built plat.
Yeah. And a lot of this stuff is, already on GS 4730. We don't really need to reiterate all that.
Right, and then next sentence, preliminary, is just put as-built plat, shall depict or contain the information indicated below.
So we're getting rid of preliminary as well as final?
Well, then what we're gonna do is add that back in as another bullet.
Oh.
But that bullet's just gonna be to
Final-
include all 4730.
Final plat should include, refer to GS 4730. Now, from what I looked at, Lamar, name, address, owner, name of subdivision, location, date of survey, all that is the scale, all that's GS 4730.
Before that, the title block, the vicinity map.
Let's just go through, for those of us who don't know, tell us what's covered on 4730.
Well, the title block, and address of the owner. Now, no, it don't require you to put the address of the owner on it. You have to put the name, the current owner's name.
I don't think we need address on it
Well, because property changes hands so much that generally, if a buyer is, or a lot of times on the subdivision, you put the name of the subdivision.
Or the LLC or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're thinking we don't need name or address on there?
That would be good.
That's covered.
The name of the subdivision has to be there. The location has to be there.
Location is 4730.
Yeah, and the dates, that's all 4730. The graphic scale and the written scale is 4730. Name, address, and registration number, the surveyor's all 4730. And your tax parcel ID, it doesn't specify that out. It can be a deed reference or it can be a tax parcel number.
So we'll keep that.
You can leave that in there.
That's the only way.
And it actually is better now since we're not using that tax ID now. Of course, the lots and the lot sizes and the lot numbers are all part of that. The roads, the widths,
Those are all 4730.
Yeah.
Subdivision.
existing platted roads, yeah. And rights of ways, dimensions, all that's required by law. Now, your roadway and shoulder dimensions is not, that would be part of that, but
Any utilities before that?
yes, it would be.
Road grades.
The road grades, all that, when you start there, you're getting into what I'll be on that, but
All the way down, Lamar?
Starting at roadway and shoulder dimension going
Yeah.
all the way through.
So Lamar, the existing and platted roads on abutting properties, is that required? Or just the roads on the property that's we're referencing?
well, there's a part of the ordinance that says if the road crosses a line, the existing road, you got to show it.
What is that? What
Or
does
if it
say
makes
that?
up a boundary.
Just
It
above
makes up
the
a
word
boundary, it's got
subdivision.
to be on there, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's on any map, if you're doing boundary map. If there's a road crossing that boundary, then you're required by law to show that road on the map.
But that's not what this says.
But now the platted roads on the budding properties, I don't know what that means really.
I don't know why you need it.
The existing road, sure, but not on the budding
But the
property.
existing roads inside your parent tract would be GS
Well,
4730,
Yeah, they have to be on there.
as long as they were.
And I don't know why, but
Yeah.
that language in that one, there's bad, that ought to be changed.
So are we gonna say, I'm sure I understand, the items that you say were covered under 4730, we're gonna say that the as-built includes everything under 4730 and these additional items that we're gonna list that are not covered, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
The final plat will only,
The
there's no
final
need to
plan
read.
will only be 47.
There's no need to read. Right.
No.
But you want on 4730 and the tax parcel ID number? Because didn't you say that's not it?
Well,
The new
you
ones
you
do.
can
Oh,
use, you gotta put a deed reference. You gotta have some kind of an identification of the property.
They want to.
But he wants, so we need to say 4730 and
And these
to include the tax
additional-
parcel ID
whatever we
number.
don't scratch out. And these other ones that were,
The next,
that we're talking
Yeah.
about.
the next to last statement on that page, that needs to be completely taken out.
The next to last statement.
Yep. Slope hazard designation is indicated on the Macon County slope hazard maps.
But the overhead transmission lines, you have to show them on the GS 4730. That's a no-no to leave them off, that could cause big issues.
Lamar, the next one's one we've always struggled with, is utility and other easements record on the budding.
Overhead transmission lines are covered under GS.
Yeah.
What about underground? But underground are not.
No. We were going to require people to locate the underground to put on an as-built plat. And I still think that's a good idea, but homeowners need to know where that's at.
Underground?
Yeah, for the as-built now.
I've done that before. Probably political.
The wells and all that stuff would be on the as-built.
What about where it says under utilities and water, utility and other areas directed, abutting subdivision? I don't know why.
Well, I don't know why that abutting the subdivision.
I don't know.
Well, wouldn't that be something to do with the septic tank and the water well on the other property?
Well, if it's an easement for a septic off the property, then certainly that would need to be shown, but that.
You'd have to show that in the law, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's by law, you have to show that.
But I mean, to find a abutting property's utility easement,
I don't know why we have that in there, that's really not,
Yeah.
that don't need to be there.
But any right of ways that go through that property have to be recorded.
Right, that has to be, yeah.
But that's anything like you're saying that was crossing the property line.
Right.
Yeah, but the budding, I don't, yeah, all those things are.
Well, that's bad language, that,
Yeah, they know where they're at.
I don't know that, I don't think we said that.
They know exactly where they're at.
It has to be, just so people know where stuff is.
The people that own the property don't.
everything else to me is more. What about, like pond and water features? There was something in there.
Yeah, that's in this area.
Well,
73.
ponds and water features have to be shown on record survey.
This is proposed.
Yeah. But now proposed,
Now, how do you show it for code?
that would be more likely for a preliminary plat, not a final plat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why it says, and if proposed ponds or other water features, why not just existing ponds?
Yeah.
Existing water features, we know.
Yeah, that'd be all you need.
Proposed
Existing ponds and water.
Proposed could be 10 years down the line.
Now,
On the economy.
the floodway and the non-encroachment areas, and that's, I'd like to see the word approximate added to that if you could, because if you have, those things are not easy to define.
Say that again, the law, please.
Approximate location of floodways and non-encroachment areas.
And why do you say it?
Well, it's a lot of work to determine exactly where that floodway and that encroachment area is on that property. It's quite detailed.
You'll have to establish who's going to be working in that area.
Well, yeah, but we're talking about putting it on an as-built plat of a subdivision. If you got a subdivision goes down to the river, to accurately get that, it's hard to do.
GS doesn't require that.
No.
But you're saying put it on there, but just approximately.
Yeah, but you can draw people's attention to the fact that it's dire,
Yes.
but this is not the exact location.
So you might have your heart on it.
Well, the only thing I can see an attorney having an issue with approximate.
What do you do in March, you've got a plat that's in the flood zone right now? Go out, survey it, try to get it.
But we put a note on there that a portion of this property lies within a special flood aspect.
Okay, and then you delineate that line? Unless you're at.
Well, see, that's what I'm talking about, that's.
You have to do a topo and then apply the
Yeah,
big flood
you've got to
elevation.
have elevations, and it's a lot of work to get that. So I would think just to make notation that it's there.
Yeah, that get away from the approximate.
Yeah,
And
the
then that
portion
way-
of it lies in that.
Yeah, that way they know that if they're gonna do any construction on that lot, that they're gonna have
Yeah.
to do some further work.
And generally that
Make
comes
it
when it starts to build a house.
That's fine.
I'm getting hungry. Valley Marsh. What time's your meeting?
It already started.
Start at 6.
Yeah.
I hope it ain't far from here. Everything's far from here. No, you live far from here.
I think, is everybody okay with consensus? I don't think we ought to vote on it at this point, that he's gonna come up with this revised list for these and have them broke out that way. Everybody can get one more look-see at it.
You know, the school board occasionally meets in Highland.
Occasionally.
Don't they pay, buy dinner too?
You get
I don't know, we'll ask Jimmy.
You get mileage and all that good stuff like we do?
Yeah.
Given that we have one individual who's fighting the seat, and go to Highlands.
They say you got something.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Next meeting.
Well, let's see.
Thursday, right?
November the.
What's
You'll send out an
Is
email.
anybody, wait a minute, is anybody open to meeting in 2 weeks?
No.
Well, they said there wasn't no hurry. They said there wasn't no hurry.
We've got this meeting about half of our usual time.
Well, when would the typical next meeting would fall over on the 15th?
Third Thursday.
You can go, Larry, I mean, you got nothing to do.
I'll be there, I've got kids, but maybe
You'll be in the pub.
me on Halloween, I'll just come up to Halloween, I'll come anyway.
Oh, you're gonna be the head for the track.
Need some zip lines.
Come on up there, that's true, what you mean.
There you go, zip and zip.
Do y'all want to meet at the regular time, or do we want to try to meet before that?
Regular time's fine with me.
I think we do need to pretty much try to meet at least from 5 to 7 if we're only going to meet once.
Well, I mean, we've basically, I think, once he gets this list back, I don't think there'll be a whole lot of discussion about that. No, but we still do have some issues that we need to work through. You know,
We didn't get through the agenda for tonight.
pardon,
We
that's
did not
correct,
get
that's
to the
correct.
agenda.
We didn't get to any of you yet. So, you know, I would encourage you, us to try to have an additional meeting, but if nobody wants to, then we won't. So,
Well, last meeting, Jimmy said he wasn't in a hurry. Commissioner said.
we're not in a hurry. And then they'll probably ask you to move
We don't
on.
have it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I've heard that.
So there's no rush.
There's no rush, but when do you finish it?
By next month.
And the fact that they've already tasked us with the next thing, I think that might be an indication.
I won't be
Right.
here. First week in November.
So you'll be gone the week of the 5th.
Yeah, it's that first weekend.
There's first and second fall on Thursday and Friday.
And I don't know.
Dang, you got a smartphone? I ain't even got one of them yet.
Will that be?
I don't know, something's wrong.
Hey, if you ever get the one, you can't leave it.
You know, I wanted one until I found out they're gonna charge me an extra $50 on my phone bill to have one of them, and I said, no, that's okay.
No, 30. Have you ever thought about the bills you got today that you didn't have 20 years ago every month?
Every-
Taxes that are on the bills. that you
Hold
paid
on.
that you didn't have.
You're gonna be gone
I've
that
been
week,
gone this
Dave.
week, I'm pretty sure.
And he's the one who brought most of the funds.
Yeah, so I guess the 15th is the day.
Jimmy won again.
How'd I do that? When did I win before?
A couple of years ago.
Did you not write it down?
No. I might have to get me a smartphone now.
Does anybody have any thoughts on, would we be interested in starting the meeting an hour earlier? Is that?
I don't have no problem.
I don't have a problem with that.
So 4 to 6.
Today I don't have a problem with it.
5
Who
to
knows?
So
Let's
start at
start
4
on
and
Monday.
see how long we can stand it?
I can
I'm not wrong.
start.
What about the guys from Highlands? They got further to
Yeah,
come.
they've got-
I'm in Scaly, it's okay.
Okay. That's even,
Larry says 4 is good.
That's great.
Is it going to have to, are you going to continue to have another meeting at the same time?
No, this is a one-time deal.
No, this is the one time.
You're not gonna tell me where you're going.
No.
I'll tell you, I don't care. I don't hide much. If you ask me, you better be careful, because I will answer.
Just make sure you get some good steak and shrimp.
That's right.
It'll be-
Y'all let me know if y'all decide something different.
4 o'clock, you'll see none of you.
On the
15.
On the 15th. 4 o'clock. Okay.
Gentlemen, enjoy your dinner.
Thank y'all.